Free Love by Tessa Hadley is a literary fiction novel set in London in 1967. The Fisher family, Roger and Phyllis and their children Colette and Hugh, is conventional and stable. But when the 20-something neighbor boy kisses Phyllis one night, she makes a dramatic and unconventional choice. Her decision changes the family and reflects the very real changes happening in the unconventional world of London's hippie art scene. Hello and welcome to The Best Book Ever, the podcast where we get to know interesting people by asking them about their favorite book. I'm your host, Julie Strauss, and joining me today is Douglas Bell. Douglas is a former magician, engineer, and debut author of the novel Cakewalk. Douglas and I talked about his unusual spiritual path, how one book changed his life outlook, how meditation and reading are both paths to empathy, and why the wonderful novel Free Love is the best book ever. Hi, Douglas. Welcome to the Best Book Ever podcast.
Hi, Julie. How are you? Thank you for having me.
I am doing well, and I'm really excited to talk to you about this very interesting book. But we're going to start first with something I'm possibly more interested in, and that is your background, which is one of the most eclectic and interesting biographies I have ever read. So let's start with Jesuit educated and now practicing Buddhist. Will you share that journey with our listeners?
Interesting. Yes. I actually grew up in a Black Baptist church, but I attended Catholic private school during the week. So during the week, you learn to do the Stations of the Cross and genuflecting, and you did everything you were supposed to do. But on Sundays, we went to a Black Baptist church, and we were in there singing and having a good time in the church. Yeah, so that went on all the way through high school, and
they're very different forms of expression too, religious expression. Because I was raised Catholic, and whenever I am around religious practices that are physical, I always go, "Why are we hugging?
Right?
What is happening?"
Yes, two very different experiences. One thing about Black Baptist Church is you're going to get a good song, and you're going to feel good.
Yes,
and you're going to get. It's going to soothe a lot of that, those ailments that you have, kind of like a good ointment,
Yes.
But, as it's fun, it's interesting, though, as you got older and life kind of picked up, I found myself in a really bad space. I found out that my wife was sleeping with the fish tank cleaner.
Who knew? I had no idea those guys were so appealing.
Thank you. And so that put us in, now we're getting divorced. She's moved on with the fish tank cleaner. I have moved out, but I have the kids, and we're in separation. And my son says, "Daddy, I have two daddies." And I said, "So what are you talking about? I got two daddies. Daryl's my first daddy, and you're my second daddy." And I said, "Son, you have one dad, and that's me." He's like, No, seriously, I got two daddies." He's like four.
Is Daryl the fish tank guy?
No, Daryl is a different man.
Holy moly, the plot keeps thickening.
Oh, yes. And it was true. So, Julie, I'm in this bad space. And at this point, there is no amount of singing and dancing, genuflecting, signs of cross, or anything is going to help soothe this particular situation. And I was broke. I have probably never been so broke before in my life, financially, emotionally, mentally. I'm just broke and broken. Somewhere or another, at the time, I went to Barnes & Noble. I got my little coffee, sat there and read my little book, and found a book by the Dalai Lama, The Art of Happiness. And I was like, happiness? What is that? Oh, you have got to be kidding me. I haven't seen that in a long time. If happiness came and sat next to me, I wouldn't know what to say to her. Yeah, I just, and so I kept going back to Barnes Nobles and I kept reading and looking and reading from the Dalai Lama about happiness. And that led me to meditation. And then from there, I then sought out a group of meditators here in Houston, which led me to about a group of about 8 people who were meditating at a Unitarian church. And that turned out to be the beginnings of what is now the Houston Zen Center. So actually, I'm one of the founding members for the Houston Zen Center here in Houston, Texas. So now I'm actually a practicing Buddhist, but I like to laugh about it and say I'm a Zen Baptist.
I love that.
Yes. I'm still very attached to this Black Baptist tradition. I have not let that go. That is very much still a part of me.
Will you tell us about your debut novel, Cakewalk?
Yes, Cakewalk. It is contemporary fiction, and it is based on my past experiences. But it is about a successful man really struggling to openly date a trans woman.
What was the reception to this in the various communities you belong to? I'm thinking specifically of the Baptist community. Was it well received?
I don't, well, oh, this is so funny. Oh, yes, I have a good one for you. Okay.
I love stories that start like this.
So here in Houston last September, they had the National Black Book Festival. It was like 80 authors and like 4 of us were men. And so it was at a church. So the first person gets up and she says, y'all, I want to tell y'all, thank y'all for being here. I am from Florida. Praise the Lord. I have made it here. My first book is about, being a Black woman and doing what we need to do, blah, blah. And she's going, yes, everybody's yes. Praise the Lord. Yes, I love it. So the next person stands up. It's a book about children and how we need to educate our children and Black children, so and so. So this goes on probably about 20 or 30 people. All of a sudden, it's my turn to stand up. And I say, well, hi, I'm Douglas Bell. I've written my first novel, and it is about a successful Black man struggling to openly love his transgender girlfriend. And the place was just quiet. And you could see everybody kind of leaning next to him. What did he just say? Did he just say what I think he said? And so I said, well, you all must have got the gist of it because the room is very quiet. And this lady, she says, in the very back, she goes, yeah, okay, let's give him a hand. Yes. Yes, let's give him a hand. But here is the thing. The next day at the festival, probably about 8 people quietly walked over and whispered, excuse me, you're the young man that wrote that book? I said, yeah. Cakewalk said, yes. Can I buy this? Mm-hmm. And does he know that she is? I said, oh, yes, he's very aware of it. Why? Okay, where can I get a copy? I said, I got some out in the car, man.
So the need is out there.
Yes, I think there's this fear, apprehension. And I think that's the whole point of this. All of us are human. There's nothing to be terrified. Nobody is going to hurt you or harm you. Everybody is trying to get up and go to work and be who they think they're supposed to be. So, but that's also too, it's these social constructs as to why we can't be interested in it. And that's why people are whispering. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So for me, that's really the whole point of Cakewalk in a lot of ways, is to humanize these struggles and also to humanize a trans person, but a trans woman's journey just to be herself in all of this. And I guess the transphobia and the homophobia of the book is there. It has to be, because the protagonist has to start somewhere in order to fully appreciate her, either one, in the way she wants to be seen, perceived. She doesn't want to be fetishized. But yet society does that, and he does it too. He does it too because he doesn't know any better. He doesn't have the courage to break bonds of being tethered to what society says it's supposed to be. So he does eventually break those bonds, and he does learn. And that's just it. He has to teach himself to love himself enough to love her.
Did you always know that you were going to write a book? Or did you have the personal experiences of your life and then think, I ought to write about this?
I have an engineering degree from University of Texas, and I started working as an engineer back in the late 80s. And around about the time that this divorce came along, I had started practicing magic. I'm living in this house. I'm broke. I'm barely making it to work. At this point, I don't think I found out about my son yet.
Mm.
But the deck of cards was the only friend I had. So I just kept messing around with these deck of cards and playing around and just doing magic tricks because it was the only thing I had worthwhile. And so at some point, I don't remember where I was at, Julie, but I met a guy. And he said, would you like to come to a meeting of magicians? And I was kind of like, are you serious? He's like, yes. He says, I will call you and give you the actual address later. And it was really like kind of one of these kind of things with the, what's the book that was real popular with the kids with the magic? Can't think of the name of it.
Like Harry Potter?
Yes, thank you. So I went to this thing and it was all these magicians. And honestly, things were floating. Stuff was disappearing. Oh yeah, and I was just blown away.
Kidding me?
No, I'm serious. And so I am like a 20-some-odd-year-old man. I'm just like a little kid, like, oh my goodness, look at all this. And so they let you stay for part of the meeting because at this point you are not a registered magician. So they basically kick you out afterwards. But I think that's all kind of a thing, kind of like, oh, you're telling me to leave, but I want to stay. Yeah, so you're like, oh, I really want to. So I think that's what's going on here. But you get kicked out. Yes. So you get kicked out because you're not a registered magician. And so
that's when they do the big tricks.
Well, and they talk about all this magic business. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. There's magic business. And, it's run by the older guys. They're in charge of everything.
God, I love this.
So I became a magician, started performing. I eventually resigned from my engineering job, and my boss just thought I was crazy. And my father passed away of colon cancer doing this. So by the time I came back to Houston, I had to get a real job. I no longer could be an artist anymore. And so I got back working again. But once again, life starts doing what life does. It just moves and grows where it's supposed to grow to. But now I write in a personal journal daily, and I have been doing that since 1990.
Oh my gosh.
And the writing was very cathartic in terms of being honest about who I was, how I felt, what I thought. And that actually turned into about 15,000 words on paper. And out of a curiosity, I just happened to turn it into a short story contest. And someone wrote me back and said, why are you not making this a novel? I'm the type of guy, I am open to challenges. So when he kind of threw the mantle down, kind of said, you can do this, I was kind of like, okay, if I can. So I ended up at WriteFest. WriteFest is a large writing conference here in Houston. And once again, it is nothing but women. And it is 5 guys. And I sat down at this table, and the ladies there were so friendly and open, the sense of community, the sense of wanting to share and be helpful. And everybody sitting at that table said, you have to read Save the Cat. they were like, well, we're going to help you. We're going to get you what you need. That same few days is also when I met the editor of Cakewalk through the co-founder of a publishing company called Bloomsday Literary. And right now, Bloomsday Literary is a nonprofit, and I am actually the board chair of Bloomsday Literary now, and helping them produce literary fiction and poetry, specifically by BIPOC and LGBTQ plus authors. And it has been quite a journey to lead this nonprofit and work with them in this capacity, from a business capacity, from a community standpoint. So in a lot of ways, it's my way of giving back to them because of how much they've given me because I'm not a writer, and I really was not a reader, Julie. Up until maybe 2018, I had never really even, aside from reading spiritual, what you call, I guess, nonfiction, and to feed my soul, to make me a better man, to make me a better person. I did not read for entertainment.
So what switched that for you?
Because I was writing this about this relationship with this man and his trans girlfriend. I ended up picking up James Baldwin's book. I enjoyed it. And I ended up telling my wife, kind of like, oh, this is interesting. I never would have thought I would have enjoyed reading just for the sake of reading. That totally caught me by surprise. Now, my wife, she's actually an English major. So she is a reader, but this got her reading more intentionally now that I wanted to read. So now that really got us reading together. And so then it just kind of picked up. And next thing you know, I'm getting through a book a month, you know.
Mm-hmm. Who chooses the books you read together?
For the most part, you get to say, I am. Now, I just recently read a book about Clarence Thomas, and I am just so blown away. It is called The Enigma of Clarence Thomas. And we both sat down and read this book because, especially as a African-American, as a Black person, you struggle sometimes with some of the things you're hearing. At least I do, and I would feel most Black people are struggling with some of the things that a person like Clarence Thomas would say. And so I purchased this book hoping that it would give me some insight. And I think, you know, and not insight as in necessarily opinion, but something based on some level of fact. And that's what this guy did. He actually took Clarence Thomas' writings and parsed them out and said, look at this. Tell me what you think. When you read this, tell me what you see, because this is what I see when I read what he's written from his own desk regarding race, regarding, you know, civil liberties, his rights, and these types of things. So there is a desire to educate myself on that subject, and also a responsibility to spend some time understanding some of these subjects on a much deeper level than just kind of a CNN, Fox News. You've got to dig deeper if you're going to make yourself available to people and articulate a possible reason as to why some things are the way they are, or maybe the reason as to why they are, but also not be off-putting. We read Lily King's Writers and Lovers. Me and her, we really loved that. But then I also read Real Queer America, which was a very good nonfiction story about a trans woman who traveled the United States, just kind of, you know, giving her take on what she sees as she drives from one part of the side of the country to the other. That was very informative in writing Cakewalk, along with the trans friends that I have in my own life who sat with me, who I spend time with all the time. Also, too, one last book that I really wanted to mention was Transition Baby.
Oh, I read that. Did you like it?
I did. That was surprising. But that's the thing. I guess I just kind of feel like, do we have to have a problem with just because something's different? Why can't it just be, okay?
I love that you brought up Detransition Baby, because as soon as you said that, I realized I had the same reaction to that book as I did to Free Love.
Mm-hmm.
Both of those books forced me to go, I am uncomfortable with this. I don't like the way these people are acting. Mm-hmm. That's kind of an automatic response. Everyone is it's unfamiliar to me, and it's making me feel judgy, and I don't like it when I feel judgy. And I have here in my notes that free love requires empathy, but also creates empathy because you care about the characters. And in order to get through it, my thought through the whole thing was, oh, this is not going to end well. This choice you are about to make is not going to end well. But I cared. I just stopped and went, just pay attention to it. Let's just pay attention to this story and see who we all are.
Yes, and I think that's what's missing a lot of times is our ability to just sit. I think there's this desire to do something with how you're feeling, and I think that's the beauty of meditation. With meditation, you're actually practicing how to just sit. When I was going through learning about my son, the abbot Galen, she would make me just sit. We would sit for hours. And she would say, a man's inability to sit with himself is where the pain comes from. So I would just cry. But it was this sitting, just a sitting with it, because she would say, there is action in sitting. Under a Buddhist text, it is the decoupling of that feeling to bad or good. It's just a feeling. But what makes it, bad or good is because how it relates to something else. So this idea of bad or good really is only formed because of what you are attaching it to. So if you can decouple all of these things and just simply let it be as it is without judging it or labeling it, I think you could actually get a much different, and I'll use the term response, than reaction to what is unfolding before you.
It occurs to me as you're saying all of this, that meditation in a way is, that notion that you say of just sit with your feeling, that freaks most of us out, right? Those of us, and a lot of people today say, we've got the hamster wheel brains.
Right.
And there's also that lingering feeling of judgment of ourselves of, I really should be doing
right.
something.
Right.
And in a way, meditation is very much the art of just observing the way we do with our books, where instead of sitting there going, you're ruining everything by I don't like you. And instead, I just kept reading to see what is going to happen next.
It is going to happen.
And that's what you're doing. You're creating your own empathy for your own self through meditation, right? Let's just sit. Let's not be judgmental or angry or abusive towards ourselves. Let's just sit with it and see what happens. Right. The way I can sit with a book. And I don't do that to myself. And most people I don't think can do that for themselves.
Well, I want to challenge that by saying most people can't because they haven't thought about it. Meaning we are only as good as what we're conscious of. Now, once you become conscious of something, you have a responsibility to either be better or worse from that kind of 0 point. So I think in free love, as much as we could say she brought it on herself, at the same time, when everything was done and said, she was still happy. That's what I thought was interesting, because most people would be trying to fix it. She was content. Her life had completely changed, but she was content. I think some days women are forced to reinvent themselves continually in ways that men are not.
Obviously, we can't talk about the twist. Did you see that coming?
I did not.
I did not either. And I always think I'm so clever.
If you're always trying to figure it out and such, you're not being present moment. And that's why this is so...
You nailed me. You got me. That's exactly what happened.
Me being such a new writer, and I'm getting to know writing, and I'm getting to know different authors and who they are and what they do and what I do like and what I don't like. With Tessa Hadley, because I came across her in a series of short stories, Married, Love, and Other Stories, that I read back in maybe 2019 or something like that. So that's what brought me to Free Love. But I am just always a present mind with her. And I'm not out searching for where it can go and what it might be. I'm just with her work, and her writing is so eloquent. Her writing is so efficient.
Mm-hmm.
And her combination of words or combinations of words that creates a picture, you're kind of like, oh, I wish I could have put those two words together like she just did.
She is really just a master of those very, very tiny movements that indicate a lot that's going on within a character. It was very unexpected. This book surprised me on every page, I'll tell you. I didn't know anything going in.
I feel bad for asking this question, but was it so much that she left this marriage as it was more the timing?
I'll be interested to hear your answer to that question. For me, it was that she didn't. Everyone has a right to be happy, and everyone has a right to be partnered happily.
Correct.
For me, what I felt was cruel was that she sacrificed her children for the sake of her happiness. And that I felt was extremely unfair.
Yeah.
And it's easy to say when you're not in the situation. It's easy to look at her in this book and think, if you're unhappy, get out of the marriage. But you do not abandon children like this.
Right.
She literally walked away with her purse.
Okay. So we're agreeing that it's not that she did, it's really more about how she did it.
Right. But again, coming back to the empathy, which is the word I thought of through this whole thing, is I have not been in that situation where she truly felt like she couldn't breathe.
Correct.
I don't know. Maybe that's the answer. I don't know. And if I were in that situation, would I just grab my purse and walk out of the house? Maybe. I don't know. I don't think so, but...
I don't think so. Well, my first wife did it, so I know it happens.
Right. That's what I'm saying is you think you understand human nature until you get into a situation, you get proximity to someone who is experiencing life differently than you. And it always forces me to think, I think I know the right answer to this situation, but I haven't been in it. I don't know.
Right. But you know something too, though, about Free Love that I think really, really, which is why I'm so glad you were willing to look at this particular story, is because her reinvention was extremely deep. And what I mean by that is that she comes across the Black person in this other part of town who I think at one time, that was just a person you saw on TV.
Mm-hmm.
They had no life. They had no story. They were just a person you saw. And she got to meet, and she finally recognized that there was a whole nother world outside of whatever they had going on. So she was no longer that person. She all of a sudden realized that all these people were just people who were just being who they are and living their lives. And they actually had lives. They actually had dreams. And I like the fact that Tessa kind of added, I won't say social commentary, maybe, but there was an element there of awareness that I don't think you find maybe in other books. And when you do find it in the books where there are diverse characters, that awareness is tied only to that one person. I think Tessa tied it to the entire community, and whether that community is person of color or lower social economic level, that character opened up to all of those people.
Yes. And the nurse, Barbara, the Black woman who is her next door neighbor, is sort of the thread that unravels all of it, because her first interaction with Barbara, you can watch her progress, and you can tell she comes in with this attitude of, this is my opinion of Black people in Britain. And then as she starts to get to know Barbara, she starts realizing, oh, Barbara's actually a lot smarter than me. Barbara's actually a lot more educated. Barbara actually has tremendous dreams and different desires than I have. And every realization, the proximity of knowing someone else opens her world over and over. And then by the time, there's this great passage where she brings her daughter into her new life, and she kind of introduces her daughter, meets everyone, and she says, this is so-and-so, he's an artist. This is so-and-so, he's queer. This is so-and-so, she only likes women. And the daughter's head just kind of explodes. These are my mom's friends.
Right.
And it's like this proximity just continually opens the world to her.
But it was all done in very subtle ways. It wasn't big, huge ways that kind of seemed like, oh, that doesn't sound reasonable. It was just very subtle. Yes. So I think I totally agree with you. I can understand why these people, because this was a deep, deep unhappiness.
Yes.
Because, and I don't know if I can say this, but she made the statement, if Nikki leaves me, I'll die. No, not really. I'll just have to go home and cook a pot of mashed potatoes, and that'd be even worse.
Yes.
And I was like, wow, that's deep. That is deep.
That is such a sad sentence.
That says a lot.
I mean, and it's a really middle-aged thing, too. I'm 52. Wait, 53. I don't know. It's all blends. But I have noticed that it's very common with people my age. This is the point where we look around and we go, I am actually not happy in this particular friendship or job or relationship. A lot of people we hit the 40s and 50s and think, oh, this actually isn't working. And that's exactly where we met her, is maybe, I'm sure she thought it's tolerable.
Yes.
Until all of a sudden it was not tolerable.
Correct. But I really think from my experiences with everybody from my mother to other older women in my life, my experiences have been that these women have been talking. Yeah. During these marriages. They have not been just sitting there being quiet and meek, but they've been saying during these marriages, hey, let's go have some fun. Hey, let's go to the movies, or hey, hold my hand, or, you know, this or that. This whole thing of being vulnerable, it takes a lot to be okay with being vulnerable. And I think for one of the first times in my life, I'm actually okay with being vulnerable. And matter of fact, right now, I am reading Bell Hook, The Will to Change, Men, Masculinity, and Love. Wow.
What is it? I don't know anything about this book.
Okay. It's interesting to find her being so connected to masculinity in terms of how it works, or why it is what it is. She is breaking down masculinity in terms of love, sex, sexuality, work. She has broken down masculinity and how it functions, and how this kind of misogyny and toxic masculinity really has to come from, at a minimum, just as much from women revealing it as men themselves revealing it with one another, but probably more so the men within the male community revealing it with one another. Because it is that relationship in a lot of ways that is allowing that level of toxic masculinity to continue. So it has been an enriching book. I don't know if you can see this, but I have all these tabs here.
It's full of Post-it notes.
Because it's just incredible. This is like some really deep stuff, but it's very slow reading because you're truly trying to digest it, and to try to read it fast is really unfair to the work itself. So yes, this is what's got me right now. I think there's things in there that really a lot of men need to read this, need to read it with their women. For the woman that is with you who cares for you, you need to be open to asking, is some of that me? This will never be complete because you never know what life is going to bring and you never know how bad it's really going to get. But I want to be prepared for it. And I think maybe I have a different approach to this because there has been some training on my part to sit. And a matter of fact, next month, I'll be going on a week's retreat where there will be what is called observing noble silence. So I will not talk for an entire week.
Wow.
Yes, I do it annually. It's one of the first things that me and my wife, that's one of the first things when we started dating. I told her, I said, this is a part of my life. I hope you can accept that. And so I've been doing that now for, like I said, 16 years. And she knows when that time comes that I'm going to be cloistered for a period of time. And so basically I will meditate from 4:30 in the morning till 10 at night. And so this training of sitting with yourself, I think helps with, I don't want to say worry, but worry about what's going to happen next. That is the catalyst for change. Because when you sit with yourself, especially for long periods of time, I don't know, have you ever sat by yourself for long periods of time?
Not for a long time. I do meditate. I use my little Headspace app.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the most I've ever done is an hour.
Okay. For me, in my experience, when you hit about 3 days, it gets quiet. It gets real quiet, like scary kind of quiet. You hit kind of a zone kind of a thing. But then on the 4th day, it ramps up again. And all kinds of stuff from 35 years ago pops up. And you're like, oh, me, where'd that come from? Oh, my God. So then you're just sitting there, you're like, oh, I can't sit here anymore. I got to get up. I want to run. I got to do something. I've been on longer retreats. And then when you hit about the 8th day, that slows down. And then it gets really crazy.
Before we say goodbye, why don't you share with our listeners where they can find you and your work online?
All righty. I have my website, www.douglasbellbooks.com. And right now I am on Instagram at Douglas Bell Author. And on my social media, you're going to find fashion. You're going to find cooking. I'm a pretty good cook. You're going to find cooking, and you're going to find some art. And you're also going to find a lot of topics on spirituality and social justice issues.
Well, this has been such a wonderful talk, and I am so delighted that I got to connect with you and talk to you about this book and everything else in the world. And I hope you will come back anytime you have another book you want to share with me.
Oh, I would love to. This has been great. Yes, it has. Thank you so much, Julie.
Bookworms, I would love to hear if you've read Free Love and what you thought of it. Let me know over on Instagram at Best Book Ever Podcast. Links to everything Douglas and I discussed are available on the show notes or at my website, bestbookeverpodcast.com. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe and leave a review wherever you listen. Thank you for joining me today. And as always, I will see you at the library.